development of 1960s counterculture and the recognition of popular music as an art form. 2. Rooted in skiffle, beat and 1950s rock and roll, their sound incorporated elements of classical music and traditional pop in innovative ways. The band also explored music styles ranging from folk and Indian music to psychedelia and hard rock. As pioneers in recording, songwriting and artistic presentation, the Beatles revolutionized many aspects of the music industry and were often publicized as leaders of the era's youth and socio-cultural movements. 3. Led by primary songwriters Lennon and McCartney, the Beatles evolved from Lennon's previous group, the Quarrymen, and built their reputation by playing clubs in Liverpool and Hamburg, Germany, over 3 years from 1960, initially with Stuart Sutcliffe playing bass. The core trio of Lennon, McCartney and Harrison, together since 1958, went through a succession of drummers, including Pete Best, before inviting Starr to join them in 1962. Manager Brian Epstein molded them into a professional act, and producer George Martin guided and developed their recordings, greatly expanding their domestic success after they signed with EMI Records and achieved their first hit, Love Me Do, in late 1962. As their popularity grew into the intense fan frenzy dubbed Beatlemania, the band acquired the nickname the Fab Four. Epstein, Martin or another member of the band's entourage was sometimes informally referred to as a fifth Beatle. By early 1964, the Beatles were international stars and had achieved unprecedented levels of critical and commercial success. They became a leading force in Britain's cultural resurgence, ushering in the British invasion of the United States pop market. They soon made their film debut with A Hard Day's Night, 1964. A growing desire to refine their studio efforts, coupled with the challenging nature of their concert tours, led to the band's retirement from live performances in 1966. During this time, they produced albums of greater sophistication, including Rubber Soul, 1965, Revolver, 1966, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967. They enjoyed further commercial success with the Beatles, also known as The White Album, 1968, and Abbey Road, 1969. The success of these records heralded the album era, as albums became the dominant form of record use over singles. These records also increased public interest in psychedelic drugs and Eastern spirituality and furthered advancements in electronic music, album art and music videos. In 1968, they founded AppleCore, a multi-armed multimedia corporation that continues to oversee projects related to the band's legacy. After the group's breakup in 1970, all principal former members enjoyed success as solo artists, and some partial reunions occurred. Lennon was murdered in 1980, and Harrison died of lung cancer in 2001. McCartney and Starr remain musically active. The Beatles are the best-selling music act of all time, with estimated sales of 600 million units worldwide. 4. 5. They are the most successful act in the history of the US Billboard charts. 6. Holding the record for most number one albums on the UK Albums Chart. 15. Most number one hits on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart. 20. And most singles sold in the UK. 21.9 million. The band received many accolades, including 7 Grammy Awards, 4 Brit Awards, an Academy Award, for Best Original Song Score for the 1970 documentary film Let It Be, and 15 Ivor Novello Awards. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in their first year of eligibility, 1988, and each principal member was individually inducted between 1994 and 2015. In 2004 and 2011, the group topped Rolling Stone's lists of the greatest artists in history. Time magazine named him among the 20th century's 100 most important people. In November 1956, 16-year-old John Lennon formed a skiffle group with several friends from Quarry Bank High School in Liverpool. They were called the Quarrymen, a reference to their school song, quarrymen old before our birth. 7. 15-year-old Paul McCartney met Lennon on the 6th of July 1957, and joined as a rhythm guitarist shortly after. 8. In February 1958, McCartney invited his friend George Harrison, then aged 15, to watch the band. Harrison auditioned for Lennon, impressing him with his playing, but Lennon initially thought Harrison was too young. After a month's persistence, during a second meeting, arranged by McCartney, Harrison performed the lead guitar part of the instrumental song, Raunchy, on the upper deck of a Liverpool bus, 9, and they enlisted him as lead guitarist. 10. 11. By January 1959, Lennon's Quarry Bank friends had left the group, and he began his studies at the Liverpool College of Art. 12. The three guitarists, billing themselves as Johnny and the Moondogs, 13, were playing rock and roll whenever they could find a drummer. 14. They also performed as the Rainbows. Paul McCartney later told New Musical Express that they called themselves that, because we all had different colored shirts and we couldn't afford any others. 15. Lennon's art school friend Stuart Sutcliffe, who had just sold one of his paintings and was persuaded to purchase a bass guitar with the proceeds, joined in January 1960. He suggested changing the band's name to Beatles, as a tribute to Buddy Holly and the Crickets. 16. 17. They used this name until May, when they became the Silver Beatles, before undertaking a brief tour of Scotland as the backing group for pop singer and fellow Liverpudlian Johnny Gentle. By early July, they had refashioned themselves as the Silver Beatles, and by the middle of August simply the Beatles. August 1926 to September 28, 1991, was an American jazz trumpeter, bandleader, and composer. He is among the most influential and acclaimed figures in the history of jazz and 20th century music. Davis adopted a variety of musical directions in a roughly 5-decade career that kept him at the forefront of many major stylistic developments in jazz. 1. Born into an upper middle class. 2. Family in Alton, Illinois, and raised in East St. Louis, Davis started on the trumpet in his early teens. He left to study at Juilliard in New York City, before dropping out and making his professional debut as a member of saxophonist Charlie Parker's bebop quintet from 1944 to 1948. Shortly after, he recorded the birth of the Cool Sessions for Capitol Records, which were instrumental to the development of cool jazz. In the early 1950s, Davis recorded some of the earliest hard bop music while on Prestige Records, but did so haphazardly due to a heroin addiction. After a widely acclaimed comeback performance at the Newport Jazz Festival, he signed a long-term contract with Columbia Records and recorded the album Round About Midnight in 1955. 3. It was his first work with saxophonist John Coltrane and bassist Paul Chambers, key members of the sextet he led into the early 1960s. During this period, he alternated between orchestral jazz collaborations with arranger Gil Evans, such as the Spanish music-influenced sketches of Spain, 1960, and band recordings, such as Milestones, 1958, and Kind of Blue, 1959. 4. The latter recording remains one of the most popular jazz albums of all time. 5. Having sold over 5 million copies in the US, Davis made several lineup changes while recording Someday My Prince Will Come, 1961, his 1961 Black Hawk Concerts, and 7 Steps to Heaven, 1963, another commercial success that introduced bassist Ron Carter, pianist Herbie Hancock.
This.
CeraVe.
Oh, you didn't know?
Can skin truly be this moisturized?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Let my cream hydrate you.
3 essential ceramides.
CeraVe. Developed with Michael Cera. V. We like? So my name is Sarah. And so it's a perfect crossover opportunity. I'm Michael Cera, and human skin is my passion, which is why I developed this.
CeraVe.
Oh, you didn't know?
Can skin truly be this moisturized?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Let my cream hydrate you.
3 essential ceramides.
CeraVe. Developed with Michael Cera. V. We like? So my name is Sarah. And so it's a perfect crossover opportunity.